Hello, my name is Stefan Polovina, and today I'll be introducing my CNIT 176 Pi project, which is the AI chatbot. So, some of the context I'm going to be going over today is the business case, the connection to the Pi, the process I went through, the results I had, the troubleshooting I went through to get this to work, and the lessons I learned along the way. So, the business case, why did I want to make this project? So, first, I wanted to get more comfortable with Python and OpenAI's API. AI is currently the future of the world, and I just wanted to get more comfortable working with Python and APIs and AI itself, because odds are I'm going to come across it either later in my education or in my future career. Next, I wanted to challenge myself beyond the pre-approved projects. A lot of those are just copy paste, and I didn't just want to be another person that just did one of those. And I wanted to challenge myself and do something that I've never done before or thought I would do. And this gave me an excuse for it. And finally, I wanted to implement this chatbot in my daily routine and keep expanding its functionality because I'll gain a lot more out of this than I would if I just go online, use ChatGPT to help me out, and that's it. This will be a lot more useful, and I'll learn more along the way. So the connection to the Pi. So some of the things I used to get this project to actually be possible were the network interface. And so by having a network interface on the Pi, it allowed me to install the required packages and contents. I connected to the OpenAI API, allowing for the actual program chatbot to function. Without the network interface, it would not function and it would be impossible. Second, the storage. Having the storage available on the Pi allowed for all the required .python files to be located locally, making it easier and more convenient to run the program and its required packages. It also allowed it to be organized very nicely rather than having to run it back and forth between my computer and storage. So that was really convenient and helpful to making the project run. Finally, the graphics. So that allowed for the terminal to be displayed on my secondary screen, allowing for an easier time scripting and viewing the program, and it was all working by connected micro HDMI cable. Had it not been connected onto a separate screen, I would have had to work on my laptop, and it just would have been a pain trying to do it through SSH. Um, and so having that second screen and using the graphics that were built in on the computer architecture of the Pi just made it a lot smoother to work with and making it possible to see what I was actually working with. Next, the I/O interaction. So using an input device such as a keyboard, mouse, and even a speaker for the output allowed for the interaction with the chatbot to work properly. So had I not had a keyboard, I wouldn't have been able to give it text input or write the script at all, for that matter. The mouse was also important because it allowed me to move around on the desktop GUI. And finally, the speaker that I used allowed me to actually get speech output from the AI, because without it, well, there wouldn't have been a text-to-speech function. It just would have been text-to-text. And finally, the memory. Memory allowed for the AI chatbot to run efficiently without too much lag or time in between input and output. Had there not been a lot of memory, it would have been really slow to run each separate Python script, and it just would have been really buggy and slow. And at that point, it just would have been easier to use an online website AI, and that defeats the point of the project. So by having a good amount of memory, it allowed it to run effectively, efficiently, and fast. So the procedures that I went through to get this project to run. So first, I had to install the required packages. This included, just for example, OpenAI, which I had to install through the terminal, as well as PyTTSX3, which was a text-to-speech engine that I used in my Python scripts to get the text-to-speech to work. After that, I looked for guides that matched my need, which is specifically text input, and then give it text-to-speech as output. And that was the sort of guides I was looking for. And on screen, I had some of the three of the guides that I mostly used for this project. Finally, I would follow those guides as reference, and I coded whatever scripts I needed in Python and Python only. And those were the scripts that I ended up using for my final result. And finally, once I had each script written out and troubleshooted and debugged, I would test each one for functionality to make sure it would work. And that was essentially the procedures I went through. Obviously, there was a lot of troubleshooting in between, and I'll go into more of the detail later. The results. So I was able to get two scripts, and I'll get into why I have two scripts in a bit. So the first script, the AI prompt will work. I can give it as many inputs as I want, and it'll give me text output. It won't give me speech. But the second script I have will only take a single string as input, and it will give me a speech output. The issues I ran into that didn't allow this project to work was the issue I had when trying to combine the scripts together and actually get both of those functionalities to work together and not separately. So I'm going to really quickly show you the results I had. So when I run the first script, this will be the text-to-text script. It will run the script. It'll ask me for an input. I'll ask it what is a Raspberry Pi, for example. And once I do that, it will give me a text output for what a Raspberry Pi is. And once I learn that, I can ask it what is a cloud. And same thing, and after a couple seconds, it will give me an output for what a cloud is. It's really fast, it runs nice and easy, and it's pretty accurate. So that script works. Now, when I close out of that, I'm going to take you to the other script, which is the text-to-speech script. So if I go Python 3, that tts.py. So this one will not ask me for input because it only requires one string and it will only use one string. It doesn't work any other way. And once we finish that, we see that the script ran. And once I go over to my folder where all my stuff is stored, these are my different scripts. We see a speech.mp3 file. This is the file that's generated each time when I run that script. So when I run it,
the test of the text working with AI. The test of the text to speech working with AI.
so that is the line I gave it to run and convert from text to speech, which you can see here. This is the line it converted, and this is the file it created. And this works. This works great, as does the other one. But unfortunately, they don't work together, and that is where I'll get into in the troubleshooting in a little bit. But the functionality is there, the proof of concept is there, and it works. It does what I kind of wanted it to do, and it's something I can expand upon in the future. Let me go back to my presentation. So troubleshooting. So obviously, some of the basic issues I ran into were just having issues installing the packages because I had to use pip because they're all Python-based packages. And unfortunately, I ran into where it said there was an externally managed environment. That is the top image you can see right there on the slideshow. And for some reason, they would not work. And so after a little bit of digging, turns out I had to change the environment I was running on, which is the little ENV you see before every single terminal line. And once I got that working, I was able to install all the packages using pip3. And that allowed me to actually start scripting and getting everything to function. So obviously, some of the issues I had with the scripts were just bad scripts. Either the scripts would not function, it would error out, or they were full of bugs, and I had to debug them all to get them to the place where I was able to show them as a result and get the AI to function. One of the biggest issues I had that I ran into was my API key. It would error out every time. It would not give me an output. I tried switching over to Gemini, which I knew was free, and it worked before with different group projects I've had. And none of the guides I found use Gemini, and I tried to freehand it, and I tried to make it on my own, as you can see in a couple of the screenshots here and on the next slide. It did not function. It would error out. I had issues with that key as well. So I had to switch back over to the OpenAI API key. Turns out I didn't have any tokens even on the free plan, which I thought I had. So I had to deposit $10. And then once I had that, I was able to get it to function as you saw in the results before. Um, that was the biggest issue and the biggest hurdle I definitely ran into. Other than the trouble I had making the chatbot script and the text-to-speech script work in tandem. So I'm able to get the two functionalities that I want, but I'm not able to get them to work together. And I feel like if I had a little bit more time to work on this project, it definitely would have been achieved. And it definitely would have been possible if I had a little bit more background knowledge on Python. But just the Python that I learned from CNIT 155 was not enough for this project. And it would have taken a lot more time digging online and doing more research to get this to work to the point where I wanted it to. And here are a couple more images I had where I was trying to either use Gemini keys or I was misspelling random mistakes either when I was running stuff in the terminal or in the scripts themselves, or I had indentation issues where it would just say indent error or inconsistent indentation. And so I'd have to go through each time, go back, nano the Python script, and then Python 3, run it. And I would just run through that, 10, 15, 20 times however I needed to before I would get a successful output. And that was essentially most of the issues I ran into in the screenshots here. So what did I learn from this project? I would learn that I should do a speech to text and a text to speech function since there were more guides for it. When everyone thinks of an AI chatbot assistant, they think of one you can speak to and get speech from, similar to an Amazon Alexa and a Google Home. I should have done that from the beginning, but by the time I was very, very deep into this project, I realized I didn't have enough time to get a microphone on time, and I just had to roll with the punches and do with what I had. Once I did that, another thing I learned is I would spend more time on the Python instead of searching for online solutions. I feel like if I took the time, sat down, and learned the Python that was relevant to this project, it would have went a lot smoother. I would have had way less issues, and it just would have been more straightforward. And also, if I took the time to slow down and read carefully through each guide, blog, video, whatever, it probably would have been more successful in a shorter amount of time because I feel like I was running into the same issues multiple times instead of just getting them down on the first go and being straight with it. But along the path, I learned a lot. I learned the mistakes. I still have a lot more to learn, especially since this project does not work to the functionality I wished it did. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this result. I went a lot farther than I thought it would, because I wasn't really confident going into this, which is why it was a challenge that I was willing to tackle. And I feel like I tackled it pretty well to the degree I could. So overall, thank you for listening to my presentation. I'm really happy with how this project went. I wish I could have went a little bit further, but luckily I have the summer ahead of me and it's something I can spend the time over the summer working on. So thank you for listening and have a good day.